Hello guys, welcome to a brand new series, a little tiny one, and this is the road to making a hyper efficient Enderman farm. We look at every single thing we can to make a farm even more efficient. I'm going to redesign the current one I have and then make it in my Let's Play. So I was going ahead and made a super flat world and made an end portal. I've already gone and killed the dragon though, so that's one thing out the way. And the reason why you come to the end, obviously, is because Endermen only spawn here. As in, the only mob that spawns are Endermen. On the overworld, you only get about 10% chance of an Enderman spawning and hostile mobs, so it's not very good to gather them together there. And here we are on the end. Now, you don't want to be doing it on the main island itself because it's just too much surface area. You'd have to make your own perimeter like you would in the overworld. And to get around this, the lovely reason to come to the end is that it's got a huge potential for really easy ultimate spawning conditions, so that the only area you can have is just void basically. So we're just going to go out here into distance, and doing this, all we do is make a little cobble generator. So we've got a bit of lava going down, now we just put some water next to it, and what this does is to make a cobble strip all the way down to level 0, so, or 1, so you can actually get all the way down legitimately, don't need to be creative. And all we're going to do then is put a ladder on the side of that, just like so, so we can get down. So, I'll bear it back. Okay, so we've got a way down, but why do we go down? And why do we go away? Well, obviously it was to unload this island. But why do we go down? Well, in the game, there is an LC value. If you look just over here, there's an LC. And what that will do is tell you how many height is always loaded up. And if we go further up and build things, so if we go over to this pillar over here, then the LC value increases to 95, because that's how many area is loaded up vertically inside that chunk. So when the spawning conditions are checked by the algorithms, it has to check up to that height, and it won't check any further than that. So it doesn't matter if you're in a 128 world or 256 high world as we are now in these versions, it will only check up to the maximum thing that's been built. But if we look at the LC value, it's 95. Now it's 111, because any calculations of light also are distance, because it's still thinking wherever that is. So it's thinking up and then beyond that. It's saying there is light calculation here, therefore there might be blocks here, therefore check. So we've got to bear that in mind in this whole thing. And the lower down your LC value is, the less distance it has to check, because it's always going to check from level 0 upwards. But the shorter it checks overall, the less block it has to check, therefore the faster it can spawn mobs. Now, we're going to be going down to the bottom, and they're going, our maximum size of the farm will be 128 high, so that it's only loading up your actual human player render distance, because mobs won't spawn outside of that, so anything beyond the player's reach is useless. But if you did do more, it would still have to check, and it wouldn't be very good. So we go down to level 0, and then we've got to go away from the island, so let's go down here, and we're just going to go about 150 blocks away, just to be sure when we're walking around our farm that we're not actually loading up any of this at all. Anything more than 128 is fine. Now, you can use different ways to stop Endermen from spawning. The easiest way is just using light. It's just the easiest way. Now, Endermen can blink onto these places if they spawn somewhere else, but as we're going that far, Endermen can't spawn at all, so they're not going to be able to blink there. So I'm going to go out there to about 150 blocks, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I moved about 150 blocks away from the main island, and it's no longer in the far end distance. You can see like a little cloud of it anyway. So none of that island is now loaded. If you go on F3, we are on hard mode, and there are only 0 out of 1 entities. Now, the one entity is obviously yourself, so there is nothing else. Very good. So this platform is completely lit up all the way. Now, all the Enderman farms you've probably seen will be in this sort of structure. They'll have 2 branches going off with a spawning platform in the middle. Now, let's think about that. Why would you do that? Well, apart from following everyone else, there isn't really any reason to do it that way apart from looks. But we're going to go for the most efficient farm we can. So we want to be loading up the least chunks as possible, Now every part of this bridge is loading up a chunk, so each segment of this will be loading up its own chunk. So what you really want to be doing is have the branch in being part of the chunks you're actually using as a farm. It would be an advantage. Now either way it doesn't really matter because you'll be loading up a little bit extra of the bridge anyway, and it can be argued that if you built something that was like this, you would include some of the bridge itself, but then you'll be loading up this bit anyway. So to be honest, it doesn't actually make a difference. So for this farm I'm going to be doing it sideways because it just generally looks better, and that is a factor. So no matter what way you do it, you're always loading up a branch, and then whenever you're going all the way to the far end distance, it won't make actually a difference, which is just a different thing there. Just a different way of thinking of it. And what we're going to be doing though is looking at the amount of chunks we're loading up down here. So if we're looking at this value over here, if you're looking north, you'll see this value is going down, so 6, 5, and then we keep going 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Now on 0, actually this block here, isn't it? 0 is the furthest part of this chunk. If you go to 15, then you're loading up the next chunk as long as you're looking north. So if we're doing the best farm we can, we're loading up the least chunks we can. So what I'm going to do is just map out a few chunks here, and we're going to really try to stay within them, or if we don't, we'll shuffle the farm so we're using up the least chunks as possible. So I'll map these out and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got mapped out 2 chunks. In case we spill out from this one, we'll be using this one as well. And when we do it, if we do need more than 1 chunk width, then we'll make sure the farm is centralized around the middle of these 2 chunks and not spilling into this chunk over there and this chunk, just to minimize our chunk usage. Now a chunk is in this corner. If you look on this value and this value here, you go from 0, 0 all the way to 15, 15. So that is your 16 by 16 block, and of course we are on layer 1 if you look on the Y value. So we're at the lowest point of the world. We've got the minimum chunks we want to use. Now we've got to think about quite practically what we want from the farm. So I want a 1 wide killing platform. It's my favourite way to do it. That is the decision I've made. So in decision theory, it changes some things in the farm. Now before we build the platforms, we'll be doing that next time. We're going to focus on how we want to collect ender pearls. Now we're in 1.5 and we're testing this also in the 1.6 snapshots to make sure it works still. We want to gather up the ender pearls and dispose of them if we don't want them. And also I want to collect up some, maybe in 2 or 3 double chests as a reserve. And then when they're filled up, it will then go into an overflow and then get disposed of. So I'm going to be straight away thinking of a random size platform in the middle. It doesn't matter how big we do it, the principle will still be the same. So I want to be doing is put hoppers down at the lowest level that we can. So at the moment we're level 1, so we actually put them inside that, and that would be the lowest level you could have it. And then obviously we want to pick something to allow the ender pearls to go through. So you could do a half slab, or the favourite at the moment is soul sand, because soul sand counts on full damage as a block, but when it comes to everything else it's actually 0.9 of a block or something, so, or 0.875. So hoppers can see items through them and then suck them through. So using this you can get the right full damage and you can get items disposed of or stored. Now in this farm I also want something else. So I want a way of killing all the endermen at once, like I have in my old farm, and to actually suffocate and crush the endermen themselves. Something that's really impressive to do on Enderman Farm, because you basically can't crush endermen otherwise because they'll teleport away. But in this farm they won't be able to teleport. So that's what I want to do as my restraints, and I've got to think of a way to get the ender pearls from this upwards and then into a hopper system, droppers, into chests. If we can't do that, we may need to move this upwards by 1 to be able to fit the redstone and comparator into here. But we'll do some playing around and see if I can come up with something that will work, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I started off with a 16 by 1 killing platform. It's kind of a normal thing to pick, and it should give enough surface area up there for the spawning platforms itself. But the point with a one wide farm is that the wider you make it, the less mobs there will be per spot in total, because you're still only able to hit the mob cap. The thinner they get, the quicker you have to get to the Enderman, and then the less they spawn because you're not killing them fast enough. The faster you kill them, the faster they can respawn. So you'd pick a distance that you want to run back and forth across that allows you to kill the Enderman fast, and really you should be killing them as they're falling, and they should be coming down in bunches so that you can kill them all as they fall. That would be the most efficient way of doing it. But we're just going to pick 16 for the moment, and we'll check things like that afterwards. But I've got hoppers going all the way to a dropper tower here. Now, the annoying thing with having it at y=1 is that you can't put anything solid underneath it. So you can't put something like a comparator on it to check if there's anything in this dropper. So you have to run a clock. If you can think of any other way of doing that, then I'd love to hear. Either move it all at 1 and put a comparator on it, or run a clock. Now I'd spend a little clock here with a comparator set. Go slow enough so that this will keep pulsing. Now you could slow the timer down, speed it up, depending how many ender pearls come through the system. But this would move anything from there up 1. The only annoying thing is that it makes a sound. So you can have it something come in, you turn on a switch. It could be anywhere, it doesn't have to be there, just using that space. And then turn the farm on, kill the Enderman, and then turn it off again. Could be a way of doing it. Not really much else you can do. You can make it go further away and dispose the item somewhere else if you want to load up on the chunk. It depends how you want to do it. If we make a final farm that maybe is only, say, 5 or 6 distance this way, we can move the whole farm over to this side of the whole thing, and then have the ender pearl storage and disposal all the way over here somewhere so you couldn't hear it, and then we have an enchanting room over here. So we'll think of the logistics afterwards. We're just looking at the practicalities of itself and trying to get it to work. So this will keep pulsing that one every couple of ticks, and move all the items up and make a click if there's nothing in it. So then what we want to do is find a way of storing some ender pearls and disposing of the overflow, because you're obviously not going to be able to use all the ender pearls coming from a farm as they come through. You may come here now and then and want to grab a whole chest worth, or double chest worth, or 2 double chests worth, and then go back somewhere else when you're not actually using the farm. But as you're using the farm, you're always going to overflow chests. It's pretty much inevitable. So we want to make a storage maybe having 3 double chests, something like that. So if we had just like 3 double chests here that we wanted always to be full, and then any overflow goes into the void, it would be a nice way of doing it. Also saves on entity counts along here, and frees up your inventory for no rubbish basically. So I'm going to look at making a little tower here of comparators or torches, whatever I want to do. I could use this signal from this. Many ways you can do it, it's not really that important. And then the important bit is we need to get some into these chests and the rest into the disposal system. So I'm going to look at building that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got a made little tower, and to be honest I might actually use this in my single player, the tower itself, because it's quite nice. Didn't think it would work like this. So I've gone and blocked off all of these chests, assuming there'll be something in them. So just saying that they're full of all ender pearls, that would be where you want it all the time. Anything else coming into the system, we want to get rid of it. So if I just put a, let's just say, turn this clock on, what it's going to do is pulsate, and it's going to do all of them. We'll put some stuff in there, and it goes through. Now when it's running, the actual farm's running, this will be quiet when ender pearls are going through. So to be honest, having the clicks is probably not a bad thing at all. Items go through as soon as they come in, so that's not bad. Or they go up, and they keep going up, and keep going up. So they won't go into here because these items are not going to stack through, and they come into here. So that would be the overflow. Now to get rid of the actual items afterwards, I actually want some of these droppers. You ideally would want to have a dropper like there, and just get rid of it straight out the world, and that'd be very nice. But because you're in survival, you can only put a dropper above you. So really, I think that's the lowest level you can actually do a dropper on the world, unless you jump and fall and try and put a thing, but to be honest, we're not going to cover that one because it's a bit absurd. The other distance you can do, or the other way you can do it, is have it sideways and get them thrown out the world that way. That's probably the easiest way of doing it, and the nicest way of doing it altogether, because the whole thing can be more flat. Doing it this way, you'd probably not. Meh. This one we use a bit more hoppers, so what we're going to do is just bring hoppers down. So we just say we'll go over there and we'll go up. Use a few more hoppers, but it'll be more easier. And all we do is just get rid of that, put it down, get rid of them. Don't need that. So that's what it look like. It'll go out to the side, and then all we need to do is have a comparator. Oh, that's now run out. So all of them gone through now, and they should all be into here now. Actually, they are. Very good. Now all we need to do is some sort of tiny little comparator here, because we can use comparator for one of these, which is very nice. And I'll set up a little tiny thing here just so that when an item comes into this, it will just fire it and keep firing it until it's empty. So you just keep getting rid of all the extra. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I sorted that out, and of course this is all subject to change. If we decide to make it a certain distance, we will move this all around, change the redstone around however we want to get to the final farm. This is just showing that it works in principles, and we can change the redstone, move things around, anything at any point before we build the final one. So what I've got here is just built a little tiny comparator, little tiny clock. So this will go round, power the block above it, and then make sure this actually fires on out. And then you've got a piece of redstone coming back to reset the clock. So all we do is throw through some ender pearls. If I just throw them through like so, they will go through that and they go into it. So there you can hear it's going through. I'm going to show that it's working in principle. So these are all blocks still. Now it's coming through over to here. This will be full always pretty much, but when there's something in this hopper, then it will send a little pulse around and make it fire. Pretty simple, nice little way of doing it, and it'll only run when you need to. And of course you might need to get rid of some of the blocks, or put it right at the edge, or something else. But we know we can put this right near the end of somewhere, and it'll be fine. So that's that done, and that will just unfill itself. That'll be okay. Let that go through the system. So the next part is to look at a way of doing the killing platform. Now we won't look at the whole enchantment stuff or any sort of extra bits yet, or way of making it spawn proof, because we only want to do that when we know whereabouts on these two chunks we're going to have our farm. It could be in this a corner, or it could be in the middle, or it could be at the front or something. And we're not going to design something around that until we know how big our platforms are, where they're going to, what shape they are, and what's happening there. So best we can do now is to look at what we have to do for a standard farm. So what we have to do is make sure that this platform here is only enough for Endermen to be in, and they can't escape. So you have to be able to hit them safely and kill them and not get hurt. I also want to introduce my crusher, so I've got to wire that in the back as well. So I'm going to put in the pistons and the actual blocks, so we can actually see what restrictions we have size wise, and then I'll be right back to give you a little show. Okay, so I'm going to put in my crusher. Now my redstone knowledge and the updates have allowed me to compact this by a huge amount. It's nice to be able to come back to these things and be able to do it much better than you did previously. So what I've done here, I've just got my normal soul sand at the bottom. That's where they will fall and get half a heart of damage left. You just poke them and they die. When you want to convert just to harvesting ender pearls, whenever you want, and I can justify doing this because it's such a small amount of stuff extra, and it's really cool to see Endermen get crushed. It's really worth it. So I've got a row of pistons at the bottom, the sticky ones that will bring the bottom in and out, give them the extra 1 meter of fall damage to kill them. And then I've got a crusher up the top, so you don't want to just drop them down and then have them roam everywhere and kill you or be angry or anything else. It's not a good thing to have. So I've just got a crusher up the top here, which is going to push their heads together and kill them. That's the basic principle of it. And because of this, we've got a 16 wide row. Now redstone signal is only 15, so I have to put them not just at the end, so the signal comes in just away from the edge. And let's give you a little demonstration first. So into kill mode, it crushes them, then pulls at the bottom. So if there's anyone here, they get crushed and killed. It works normally about 98% of the time. Sometimes one will glitch through or something and not die, but when they fall down you can poke them and they die. No, not really that much difference, but it does leave you a nice flush floor and does look pretty suave. So then you go back from just harvesting mode to killing mode, and it just puts the bottom back. So all this is doing, it's a T flip-flop, this nice little compact one here. There's an item at the bottom. When you hit this piece of redstone here, it then sends the item up just once, and then it will then power this comparator because there's something in it, so we'll just show you there. Goes in, gives a little signal, and then when you do it again, it will then power it and fire out this dropper into a chest and bring it back around. You could just use 2 hoppers, doesn't really matter. I'd just use that instead. And then when it comes around, the bottom bit is always on when that's off. So just a neat little bit there, and there's a specific timer to it. It's 7 ticks on this, and then I've got the rest inverted at the top, and just a little pulse here, 1 then 2. So that would put it through, so that if you had a 1 pulse here though, you would lose the items on top of the pistons, like that. That's why it's a 2 tick. And this bit on my other farm actually had it 2, but to be honest it doesn't really make much difference, and there's a bit of safety in it, because you don't want the top pistons to retract. There we are. You don't want them to go exactly the same time because you might get stuck, so let's do that on 1, I think. Okay, so that's basically the principle of it, and it's quite small. I really rather like that. I think that will stay in the design. I don't think you can compact that much more, maybe, I don't know, but it's pretty good there. Okay, so I now need to build a safety ring around these, because when they end them inside, like this, obviously it's going to walk around, but I want it so that I can always hit them, and they can never hit me, which is what I had on my old farm, which was a significant bonus on the whole design. It really was, because there are not many Enderman farms where you're completely safe, especially not certain designs where you just walk in and you get killed basically, which is not fun. So safety is definitely paramount, and usability. And to make a frame around this, we can't use any of these blocks. All of these blocks Enderman can pick up. So if you happen to make it out of sand or clay or even TNT, God forbid, you would have some problems, because Enderman would pick it up and walk around and not be fun. So I'm going to look at just replicating what I did in my last one really, and we're just going to build the bit around the side to keep you safe. And then we'll look at how high we need to go and the kind of way we need to keep the Enderman in the flow. And then that'll be it for today. It should be quite nice. So I'll be right back with a little finished bottom bit. Okay, so I built a little frame around it, and there's 2 things that are important about this. Here it's too high, as in 2 blocks, not too much. And that means that Enderman can't blink into here. Now Enderman can blink up to 32 spaces in any direction. So they'll look for a block which is 3 high and there's no water in it, and they'll teleport there if they get angry at you, or if you punch them they don't die, anything like that. So generally you need every single space within 32 blocks around the spawning pads to either be water or not 3 high. So for this bit here, 2 high, we're going to use this because if you have less than 2 high, so say 2.5, the Enderman can hit you. Having it too high means that they can never hit you back, which is awesome, and you can look at them and they won't get angry or anything else, and it's really good. And because of this as well, when you hit this to get it back, they are now only 2 high still, so their head will be above that. Now they can still hit you if they survived, but they can't escape from that little area there, so you just punch them once and they die, maybe the 1 or 2 that ever get stuck that don't die. So that's a good thing. The rest of your farm can be 2.5 high. It's maximum nice safe room you can use, so everything else can be 2.5 high, and you can have a nice time. It can look really nice, and that's the most space you're going to get walking around, because if you do 3 high you're going to have problems. And this glowstone here is just so that there's light on the pads itself that they're going to fall onto, so they won't spawn here, and that's quite important. just in general, but you don't really need to do it. I'm just putting it there at the moment for ease. And this bit up here is too thick. This bit here doesn't need to be here at all, that's just the backing, but this bit here is too thick. You need the bottom one for the height requirement and not to get hit back. This next one here is a solid block on the other side so that the Endermen get crushed into it, and also a solid block on each end so they don't escape. They're what you need. Now you need to then go upwards. Next bit is the full height. So full height, it's 43 blocks to full to get them to one hit to kill. But then to do the actual resetting of full damage you need a bit extra, but 43 is the height needed. So he blinked off there because there was somewhere he could go to. He's done that now. And we're going to introduce a new concept for the video, and that's air blocks. Just get rid of this Enderman, actually he's quite annoying. Over here you come. Very stupid things they are. So what you can do, and what you'll see in every farm, there will be some sort of ring around the way up to stop the Enderman from strafing away from where they're meant to be going. Especially important on a one wide one because it does change a few things, and you need it all to come down this one wide platform and land there. You can't have them landing somewhere else. So you'll see safety rings around all farms that you see, making sure they come down okay. Now we're not going to go straight away and do that because I've marked out the height I need, but the important thing is we want to see in this design if we can make it as efficient as possible. So we want, in this whole system, we want as many air blocks as we can. So normal air blocks, nothing inside it. So that block on top of there, that half slab, that's an air block. Now the more air blocks in the system, the more times the algorithms succeed and they try and spawn a mob. So up there near the pads is most important, and we may see if there's an effect if you have more spawning spaces down here. Well, not spawning spaces because you'll have them blocked up, but if there is an air block and nothing inside of it, then they are a legal spawning space, so the algorithm will then survive and then say try and spawn it somewhere close. So hopefully we'll see if there's a difference between having lots of spaces down here or not, and then up there. Just something to test because it's really hard to find the difference normally. So what we can do on these, you can either do half slabs on top and do them every so often. The Endermen can't fall out, they can't spawn inside them, but that's an air block in there, and that's an air block there. You could also do bottom half slabs, and then there would be no air blocks at all, so that would give even less chance of the algorithm working there. But like we said, it's not near the platform, so it may not make any effect at all. So it's something to bear in mind when we test later on, but for the moment I'm just going to pick top ones and I'm just going to do them every two. It's just an easy way of doing it. It doesn't really make too much difference, we don't think, not yet. And all you do is ring around just to make sure that Endermen don't get away. So we'll do that up to top. Okay, so the rings are done. They are going to be standard now. We may move these half slabs up or down if we want to have air blocks or not air blocks. Just depends if we do some testing later. Now of course we're going to make sure this whole thing works now as it is. So turn this timer on. Now we can obviously move all these things around. They're not going to stay like this in this area anyway. Depending on how big the pads are, which direction they go, we'll make sure that it all fits inside the nice space and the overall area is the least possible with a nice chest area here. So that's working, that's on. This will be staying like that, yep. So anything that comes through will be sucked through. So just check this is the right height. It's always a nice thing to do, especially in survival. You just make sure if you push one off or if you have it down your vines that they will actually get half a heart of damage. If you've miscounted and build the whole platforms, you get problems there. So poke him, one hit death. If you had a pearl, he would go through. I actually want a pearl to come through, so if we just get another block, we'll just get a block from here. Oh, lapis block, we'll do that. And we'll drop them from a tiny bit higher. Now they should all die automatically. None of them should live. Yep, they've all died, and they get fired out. There we are, saw the last one. So that's very good, I'm very pleased with that so far. Obviously, it will be moved around and everything else, but I've really enjoyed doing this. Hopefully you've learnt some stuff. Hopefully you understand how these work so far. If you've got any questions or comments or suggestions, I'd love to hear them. And likes, as always, are incredibly well appreciated. So, Thank you very much for joining me, guys, and I'll see you next time for the platforms, and then changing the farm completely to make it nice and survival friendly.